About 50 years ago, an astronaut returning from the moon experienced things that he could not find a scientific explanation for. So with some colleagues, he launched a new science focused on the mind and how it works in the body and across space and time. It's the field of Noetics, where the tools of modern science are used to help us understand how what we think and feel affects us and the world around us. Now this is Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments from the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon.
This is Noetic Moments, the show that explores what consciousness is, what it does, how it works, and how our lives could be very different if we understood it more fully. I am Ruth Miller, a longtime student of consciousness, cybernetics, and culture, and through this series of programs, I'm introducing some of the people whose work has defined this field of research, and I'm explaining some of their ideas and experiments. I'll also explore some relevant news items and answer questions that you send to my email address, ruth@noeticmoments.org. And Noetic is spelled Noetic. Over the course of these programs, we've learned that although our medical world defines consciousness as what we're aware of now, most of what goes on in the mind is not in our conscious awareness at all, but goes on in unconscious processes. From Jung and Freud and other early researchers, we learned that our minds can be thought of as having three aspects. What we are aware of, usually called the conscious mind. What we aren't aware of that keeps our bodies going and includes our fears and beliefs about threats and dangers, the subconscious mind. And what we aren't aware of that connects us with our highest ideals and guides us in our actions, the superconscious. We then learned that we can change our state of consciousness and shift what aspects of mind we are aware of and what we're capable of in the process. From neuroscientists, we learned that the brain modifies whatever it receives from both the bodily senses and the mind to fit past patterns of experience, following Begg's principle that neurons that fire together wire together, and they form a default network in the brain. This means that we see and hear and feel what we expect to or believe we will experience. We also learned that while it's possible to say where in the brain various processes are active, no one has yet been able to pinpoint how ideas and thoughts are formed. We then saw that many responses in our body happen faster than nerve impulses or chemicals can travel, and often happen before we're aware of it. Some experiments have demonstrated that a person's mind continues to perceive and process for as much as several hours, even when the brain and heart are flatlined, and the person has been declared dead. As a result, many scientists have come to accept that what we call mind is not the product of the electrochemical activity of the brain, but is in fact the activity of a field that surrounds and permeates the whole body. Now, this field that we call the mind appears to be at least partly electromagnetic, because it's possible to measure electromagnetic activity for several inches and even several feet around the body. And some researchers and teachers of ancient traditions who we call shamans and yogis say that this field looks like a glowing egg shape extending from below our knees to a few inches above our heads. Mind, then, is a field, a pattern of energy that exists regardless of whether the body is functioning, permeates and develops with the body and the brain as it is fed information by the senses through the brain. And the brain, then, is best understood as a receiver-transmitter, receiving messages from the mind and transmitting them to the body, and receiving messages from the senses and transmitting them to the body and the mind. Now, every field is a unique pattern of vibration that's different from other fields, and some experiments have demonstrated that minds can vibrate along similar patterns. They resonate with each other. Their bodies and some of their pets have been observed to change when someone they're connected with turns attention their way, even though they can't be seen or heard. We've learned that mind affects energy and matter in a variety of other ways as well. For example, in the famous double-slit experiments in quantum physics, the subatomic building blocks of the universe show up as energy, or matter, depending on whether a mind is present to observe them. For decades now, individuals have changed the patterns of numbers in what should be random grids on their computer screens and printouts. And the collective human mind changes the readouts from random number generators on the network of computers run by the Global Consciousness Project. Because of the nature of fields and because of things like the Global Consciousness Project, a growing number of scientists are seeing our individual mind as part of a larger mind, what Jung called a collective consciousness. Teilhard de Chardin called it a noosphere, and others call it a global brain. And more scientists are equating mind with the quantum or zero-point field out of which all matter and energy arise. Some are calling it the Akashic field, using a Sanskrit term that means the essence of everything that exists in the material world. We've also heard from researchers who are using the equations of quantum mechanics, relativity, and computer learning algorithms to describe the role of consciousness in the formation of matter. With these understandings, we explored some recent popular ideas about consciousness, including the law of attraction, how the world around us mirrors what our consciousness is focusing on, accessing information in the quantum or Akashic field through insight, intuition, and channeling, how dreams affect the body and consciousness, how music affects the brain and body, and our connections with other fields of mind, the role of our state of consciousness in the healing process, how the belief in a treatment can help experience a healing, how the belief in a treatment can help a patient experience healing and the placebo effect, and how we can enhance or slow down our healing processes through our thoughts, emotions, and visualizations, how remote viewing and telekinesis have been demonstrated to work, how we can get into a state of flow in which the mind and the brain are in sync and maximize our effectiveness. And, more recently, how the two hemispheres of our brain are involved in the information we receive from the world and from around our mind. And, more recently, how the two hemispheres of our brain are involved in working with the information that we receive from the world and from our mind. You can catch up on our past shows on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where you'll also find links to the clips, books, and authors that are mentioned on the show. Now, I've recently discovered a wonderful new resource that I'd like to share. She's a British psychiatrist who went on to study neurophysiology and has established, to her and other scientists' satisfaction, how the processes associated with the law of attraction and new thought work in the brain. Her name is Tara Swart, and I'll let her share her ideas.
The way that it works is your amygdala is an almond-shaped object deep in the limbic system, which is the seat of your most basic primal emotions. The amygdala is part of the limbic system, and it's to do with that's where our emotions arise from in the first place. And then there's a whole kind of cascade system of biofeedback loops and stuff that affect how they pan out in the brain and the body. And then the hippocampus, also part of the limbic system, is where our memories are formed and stored. So those two parts of the brain interact with each other a lot because obviously we lay down memories that are associated with emotions. And when we're under stress, not feeling good about ourselves, we have higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. When the brain detects that levels of cortisol are higher than they should be and they're staying high, one of the things it will do to keep you safe is that the amygdala and the hippocampus will get together and dredge up every bad memory of you having failed at something, telling you why you shouldn't take a risk and, go out there and try to make it better, telling you that you're stupid, that this will always happen to you, that you can't change it. Because if in that mode, let's say I was feeling like that this morning and then I came here to record the podcast with you, it probably wouldn't be, I wouldn't give my best performance.
You'd be cautious, you'd be worried about saying stuff, you'd be second guessing yourself.
Exactly. And, I wouldn't want to share as much personal information because I would think that that could lead to me being criticized or ridiculed or humiliated. So it basically makes you hold back on, in a way, I feel like in that mode, the brain, when you need it the most, doesn't give you the things
That got cut off, but she said doesn't give you the things that can really help you. So the specific neurons that are involved in retrieving and responding to fear-based inputs are at the very core of the brain, the very fundamental first level of brain function. Now, Dr. Swart says that while it's not possible to completely eliminate the patterns that have been laid down, it is possible to override them with new ones, and she suggests some ways to do that.
So there's 4 things that are important. So focusing on your own past successes,
The kids these days call them receipts. Are you aware of that?
No, I heard you use that word. I didn't know what, yeah.
So they call it receipts. It's basically, here's proof that you went through this, right? It's your record, just like you'd get a receipt for buying something. It's like, show me your receipts, which basically means like, hey, are you putting in the work?
That's so cute. I love that. I'm going to take that lingo on. So if you don't have a receipt yourself, then looking for, example of somebody like you that's achieved that. Keeping your brain and body in good condition. So the usual basics that I speak about, like sleep and diet and exercise. And then the last one, which is coming full circle to the question that you first posed, is dealing with that voice in your head that tells you that you can't do it, and wherever that's coming from, whether it's your parents, your teachers, the past. And for that, I suggest people create their own personalized affirmation or mantra. So underneath every thought that we hold about ourselves is a belief that we're often not fully conscious of. So you need to do the work through self-reflection of digging under the recurring thought that you may have about something specific, finding out what it is that you believe about yourself that's driving that thought, and then create a statement that is the opposite of that belief. Something that's holding you back.
Something that's holding you back.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And neuroplasticity really is boosted by repetition and emotional intensity. So either a recurring thought or, like you said, a weighty thought. And so this comes from Buddhism as well as neuroplasticity, which is that to replace a thought that you don't desire with a thought that you do desire, or that's going to help you to move forward, or that's going to unblock, what's not been happening up until now.
That was all on a lengthy podcast hosted by Dhru Purohit. That's DHRU PUROHIT on YouTube. And as usual, the links will be on our website. So there we are, a new resource, a woman who's done the science and had the experiences and written the book on how our brains can be trained to help rather than hinder our creative process in the world. If you just tuned in, you are listening to Noetic Moments, the show that explores what consciousness is, what it does, and how our lives could be better if we understood it more fully. I'm Ruth Miller, and that sound tells me we need to look at a book and what's going on in the world today, or what you, the listeners, are curious about. As I indicated earlier, Dr. Swart has written a book, which is in several languages, on how the brain and our experience of the universe are linked. She calls it The Source. It says, as Dr. Tara Swart, psychiatrist, neuroscientist, and senior lecturer at MIT, shows us, if we can strip away our skepticism, the ancient tools of manifestation and visualization are fundamentally powerful and incredibly effective at freeing us of self-limiting behaviors and propelling us toward our truest, most authentic selves. Swart reveals how and why these systems actually work by offering the latest breakthroughs in neuroscience and behavioral psychology, including lessons in neuroplasticity, magnetism, emotional and logical thinking, and even self-care, hydration, and relaxation. She describes her own journey from skeptic to believer and guides readers through the scientific breakthroughs and personal revelations that changed her from an unhappy, closed-minded, and disconnected woman wanting more from life to a successful entrepreneur living with confidence, purpose, and joy. That's from the blurb of the source, The Secrets of the Universe, The Science of the Brain. It came out in 2019. It was published by Harper. They call it Harper One, an imprint of HarperCollins Publishers. And she quotes, interestingly, the Master Key System. And those of you who know my work are aware that one of my books was an updated version of Charles Haanel, Haanel, the Master Key System, which was written in 1919, and a lot of people have trouble studying. So I wrote it in modern language and provided some exercises. So she says, life-changing opportunities pass us by every day. A chance encounter with a potential partner, a comment that could open up a new career. In our frenetic lives, such fleeting moments are easily overlooked or dismissed. But with the right help, we can train our minds to notice them and to seize them, and learn how to transform a split second into a lasting change. That's in the preface. She goes on to say, my understanding of neuroscience and my quest to explore esoteric philosophy began to feel not like schizoid poles of thought, but like two core elements drawn toward one another to create a new charge. The experiences of my friends, family, patients, and coaching clients all fed into my ideas and again demonstrated the truth at the heart of these teachings. I was finally doing work I really wanted to do, and this had a rewarding influence wherever I went. I surrounded myself with people that I knew supported me and what I was trying to achieve. I made an action board every year without fail. I kept a journal to track my thoughts and emotional responses to everything that happened, slowly counseling myself toward trust and gratitude rather than blame or avoiding true responsibility. Later, she says, this is what I offer you here in an up-to-date, scientifically backed, secular way. My learnings and experiences together with the science, my way of retraining the brain to direct our actions and emotions to manifest our deepest dreams. That's Dr. Tara Swart in the preface to her book. And the opening introduction is a historical piece, as they often are. And she's talking about the autopilot nature of the way we function. And then she does have a little section here in the introduction called The Source. She says, the source is the incredible, complex, and sophisticated thing that is our whole brain, not just the cortex and our planning and data-driven decision-making abilities. The true power of the brain lies in being able to integrate what we think with how we feel. The cortex and the limbic system together with what our gut tells us and what we sense throughout our bodies. This creates an experience of life of which we can take true ownership, one that is filled with a trust in our own amazing ability to navigate circumstances with every part of us aligned and fully immersed. That's all from the early pages in The Source, The Secrets of the Universe, The Science of the Brain by Dr. Tara Swart, Tara Swart. And that's, of course, available in all the usual places. I do want to make the point that what she refers to as the gut, that we trust our gut, she's referring to what we call the mind, that larger mind that is around, supporting, permeating the full body and brain, that the brain has access to when we learn how to have that open, trusting right brain hemisphere and are not driven by either the amygdala and limbic system or that left frontal cortex that's being so rational. Other than that, I think you'll find her useful, very useful indeed. All right, it's time to talk about the news. I've not had time to for a couple of episodes, so this is kind of cool. So I want to talk about this marvelous discovery that's been going on in South Africa. There's been quite a bit of work in some deep caves down in South Africa that are completely shifting archaeologists' view of the development of human culture and the human mind. So for 100 years or so, almost since the idea that humans have evolved from earlier species was accepted by scientists, the magnificent drawings and paintings on the walls of the caves at Lascaux, France, have been considered the oldest human artworks, and they date about 50,000 years ago. Now, a decade or so ago, some even older art was found in other parts of the world, placing human art efforts at about 80,000 years ago. Now, though, a whole new era of human art has been ushered in, dating about 200,000 years ago. Members of this genus Homo, of which Homo sapiens is one, Homo neanderthalensis, Homo denisovans, etc., are all part of, were carving images into rock walls in a cave in South Africa 200,000 years ago. And they were burying their dead. They were curling the bodies up into fetal position and placing them in pits and giving them grave offerings in some cases and covering them and marking the area with symbols carved in the rock. This new species of humans is called Homo naledi, Naledi. And the discovery of what they did is going to transform our understanding of who we are for centuries to come. Very exciting. Well, we've come to the end of our time together. We are out of time for today, but remember, you can continue the exploration on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where there's a list of the titles and other resources we refer to on the show, along with each of the past shows that's been archived, and where you can send me your comments and questions, which I'll do my best to get answered the next time we're on the air. For now, thanks for joining me here on Noetic Moments, recorded in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon, and have a wonderful week.
You've been listening to Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments. This program is produced in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in beautiful Florence, Oregon, supported by you, our listeners. Our theme music is Tumbling Planets, composed and performed by Jeff Lovejoy. To hear this program again or learn more about Noetic sciences, search our website, www.noeticmoments.org.